This meeting is being recorded.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of In the Spotlight, a little sister videos station channel thing on YouTube that I use for my Let's Get Physical page on Facebook. This time in the house, we got Geoff Carter, that's Jeff with a G. On Facebook, he goes by GV Carter. I didn't know his name was Jeff, I put GV there, but it's Geoffrey V Carter, and he is from Michigan, right?
That's correct. Yep.
And are you in your basement there?
I am in my basement. Yep.
Very nice. And what pinball machines are those?
Well, we've got down to the end, we got a doodle bug, a mouse and around, a flash, fire queen, comet, and totem.
I like that comet.
Yeah,
is that
the
comet the newest one you have?
It goes back to '86, but I'm going to have a little story about that because I got to meet the person who designed the artwork, Python Angelo. So I'll get to that story in just a little bit here.
All right, well, go ahead, take it away. It's your show.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, and I always enjoy seeing people's stuff. And I thought, I don't have, a huge collection of things that are, uber valuable, but
those
they have little
machines behind you are valuable.
Well, they are now. I got in just before the craze happened, so I pulled a few of them out of barns for $150 before people, decided that this was, making a brewery and having pinball was the way to go. Which, I'm kind of fortunate. I just got together some music and some memorabilia and just some things that I thought I could tell some stories about. The first thing that I want to share, a little unusual, but this is a statue of Charlie Chaplin. This is a Leandro sculpture. And when I was in 6th grade, this is what I wanted my grandmother to get for me, because when we went down to Disney World, we went to Disney World, and on Main Street, there was these little Nickelodeon. And in the Nickelodeon, they were playing Charlie Chaplin and Fatty Arbuckle, a silent film called The Rounders. And when I was really little, I had never seen silent films before. And I could have just forgotten.
Right? They were shorts?
Yeah, just little short Keystone comedies,
Right.
And I was captivated by that comedy and Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd. And it just kind of took off for me. And that was my first kind of, slapstick and just my first love of media. So it was hard back in the day before, internet, to get a hold of these silent movies. I had to wait for, midnight kind of showings on television. We got one of the first VCRs, but those were the things that I wanted to track down, was old movies.
What's your favorite Charlie Chaplin movie?
Well, Modern Times is great. City Lights is a safe bet. A contrarian's choice might be something like The Great Dictator or Monsieur Verdoux, but I love them all. And if I ever introduce anyone,
Gold Rush makes me laugh the most.
Classic, I really loved when I was. They had a PBS special called Unknown Chaplin, and when I was a kid, that was just absolute gold to see the behind-the-scenes making of. And my dad was quite a film buff too, and I bought him this Orson Welles box set. And so back in the day, to do a box set with VHS, here's your reflections on the film itself, with a nice hardback book, that kind of goes through the whole thing. And if that's not enough, the script to the film.
Nice.
And also, posters and that kind of thing. So, back in the day, they did a pretty good job with the box set for that movie. During COVID, my girls were kind of trapped, and so I was introducing them to all kinds of film. We looked at Citizen Kane through the lens of another great film. This is Plan 9 from Outer Space. And if you've seen Ed Wood, you know that Orson Welles makes an appearance in kind of Tim Burton's version of Plan 9, kind of a making of, film. And so I told the girls that they need to cultivate good, bad taste, because Plan 9 is considered the worst. Citizen Kane commonly referred as the best. And as it happens, they like Plan 9 more. In fact, we've watched it now 3 or 4 times based on just them wanting to see it.
That's the only movie I've seen by him. Ed Wood.
Yeah.
I never saw Glenn or Glenda. Is that another one? Or yeah, I need to get around to seeing the other ones.
There's a really great documentary about Vampira that it is very heartfelt. I highly recommend knowing her story as well. She just plays a bit part in the film,
Right.
but she has a great story, kind of the precursor to Elvira. And
Was
so
George the Animal Steel in the movie?
I don't believe so. There is a wrestler that's in it.
Okay, it's another wrestler. He might have been dead by then, George the Animal Steel.
This is
That's cool.
Triple J.
I think I've seen those around.
Yeah. So
I was disappointed with the movie with Robert Downey Jr. back in the 90s.
Yeah, I was that was one of the films that I remember going to see with my folks, and yeah, it wasn't the best, but
It was his portrayal was good, better than the movie.
yeah, and I think there were some stylistic elements that were okay, but yeah, not the best film.
Right.
But so I also brought some toys. You can appreciate, this is Planet of the Apes. I liked your recent walkthrough of all the Planet of the Apes films. That was
I wasn't on that one.
Oh, that's right. Well, I think Monsters Den did that recently.
Right.
I know that you have an affinity for Batman.
Yes, I have the one with magnets.
Yeah, they're in a little rough shape. My girls, we got started on our family later in life in our 40s, so these still get played with.
Those are from your original childhood?
That's from my childhood.
Yeah.
And then here's a toy. This is Rom the Space Knight.
I have a ROM t-shirt. I should have wore it.
Well, I went down to Florida, and I was an only child, and my grandparents were always happy to see me, so I could always buy one thing. And I had a choice between Rom the Space Knight or the lifestyle, or the really tall version of Boba Fett.
You chose wrongly. He chose poorly, as they say in Last Crusade.
Yeah. So Rom is one of those toys that I just look upon with great regret. As charming and as sound effects laden as he was at the time.
And his limbs don't move.
It's
they do kind of move. Okay.
Kinda.
Okay.
I had a chance at the Boba Fett one though. That's the story here.
I had IG-88, which the big one, and that's really hard to come by. And my mom gave it away to the neighbor kids when I went to college.
Oh man. Probably one of the last toys that I purchased when I was probably a little too old for it was I got all the A-Team figures. So here's George Peppard. Looks nothing like George Peppard,
right.
But and talk about a show that did not hold up well.
Bullets flew, but no one got hit.
That's right. Star Wars is a big thing. These are ones that I don't let the girls play with. These are very minty from the first. The one that you had. This is that you had to get a rain check for, and then they sent the action figures, with the Cantina backing.
Yes.
Anyway, they're as crisp as they ever have been. My friends had Star Wars figures, and we beat the heck out of those. But these
They're
two,
hard to find with those plastic capes.
That's right. And this is probably hard to tell what it is, but this is the ball that goes in the Millennium Falcon that Luke was after. And evidently, you can find the Millennium Falcon, but can you find this ball?
Right.
Right.
I have the Death Star behind me.
Yeah.
And it has just a little bit of foam in there. Just a little bit of foam.
Here is the blue Snaggletooth from that original set.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he was. I think there's a band that goes by the name of Blue Snaggletooth, and they don't sound half that bad. But
okay, if you're about to pull out the Boba Fett that has the shooting missile,
I don't, and right, doesn't exist, right? I was into comic books big time, and my first appearance in print was in this issue of Comics Feature. I wrote a letter, and so my letter to Happy Hal was printed, and it was a real thrill when I was a kid to go to the news rack, pull this off, and see something that I'd written. Wasn't terribly well crafted, but I was thrilled to I actually was thrilled to find this again. I didn't think that it existed.
What
And,
year?
This is 1986.
All right.
And I thought I would like to work for Marvel at one time, so I did contact. This is Jim Shooter, who was the editor in chief there at the time, and he wrote me back and you know, did a little autograph thing. So comic books didn't appear in my future, but you know,
Right.
I was into them, as they say. So some other things. That's the kind of toy. So I do have behind me.
Ah, yes, the 2XL.
2XL.
Yep, I learned a lot from 2XL.
You know, this was a real thrill back in the day of thinking of this as something you interacted with. And it was the first time that I got to hear the voice of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. And I just remember being so over the moon to be able to hear those recordings. It was a special Christmas, and it did feel as though he was kind of offering a guided tour of things that I couldn't hear otherwise. So
it's where I learned that Dracula was a real person back in history.
Right. Yeah.
They even had a picture of him in the little booklet. If you turn to page 12 in your booklet, you'll see.
Exactly. So music-wise, I'm really into the Dead. I saw the Grateful Dead. This is from the box set. This is probably the most spendy thing because I bought this. This is the Pacific shows, and I bought this box set after it had been released and is discontinued. And when you wait that long, you end up paying for it. But I had a chance to see the Grateful Dead in 1990.
That's when I saw them. My least favorite concert ever.
I know. I think you saw them just before the Deer Creek show. I think, did you see them in Pittsburgh at the stadium there? Yeah. Of course, they were not a big fan of doing those huge venues. Deer Creek was just a little bit after that, and I worked security at that show. I was paid $100 a night. The first night I didn't get in because they wanted me to walk around the parking lot with another guy, and it was painful to do so but the other guy wasn't probably as much into the music. I just wanted to use the t-shirts to get in. But the second night was magical, and it was one of the last shows with Brent Midland. And so this was a neat thing for them to come out just a couple of years ago with this as a remastered thing, because I had a bootleg of it. But
okay.
Yeah. So another thing that I thought kind of fit well with what you're doing with your channel is, you know, physical media. And recently this book about the Grateful Dead taping community came out, and it showcases a lot of the homemade tapes that people would you know, put together for the shows, and talks a great deal about the equipment and the taper community that you know, that went into it. So I thought this is really kind of physical media celebrated, and of course that's what your channel is all about. So
yeah, I'm sure it took a lot of time to put that book together.
Exactly. Another book that I'm kind of keen on is this is Rosie McGee's book called The Grateful Dead, my Grateful Dead Photos. And this was a Kickstarter project that I contributed to. And so my name is kind of part of this you know, in this collection, which was kind of neat. But what access to a band at the time before they became, you know, as big as they became. You know, it's really quite something. And I haven't done a Kickstarter that has kind of been, it took her a long time to pull this all together. And so it was interesting to watch what a Kickstarter project takes. I think I was part of this for maybe 4 or 5 years, it seemed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just was it was a slow moving glacial thing. And it was like, okay. But you get these updates, you know, every once in a while, and be like, okay, well, it's, you know, maybe next year.
Right. You got to start to wonder.
Right. So connected to that Grateful Dead story is a kind of interesting thing that happened. My mom, after my dad passed away, got me this book about Jack Kerouac on music. And there is a crossover between the Beat generation and what the Grateful Dead are about. There are songs that reference, Neil Cassidy. And I decided that I would read not the book of On the Road, but a book I found called Off the Road. And it was the woman's perspective. It was the wife of Neil Cassidy. And I thought, wow, it'd be interesting to see what the women think of all this. And the story was quite a memoir. And I found that she grew up in East Lansing, Michigan. And her dad, this is the wife of Neil Cassidy, her dad worked at Michigan State in the agriculture department, where my wife's dad just retired from.
Okay.
Long story short, I contacted the estate to find out the address where the woman lived, and I struck up a friendship with the daughter of Neil Cassidy. And she was working on a book of poems that her mom did. And this is Neil's letters. And I brought her to Saginaw Valley State to give a talk about her mom's work. And here's a picture of us together. And she wanted to go on a bit of a road trip up to this cabin that her mom had in on Glen Lake here up in the upper part of the Lower Peninsula. And she also wanted to go down to East Lansing, where her grandpa's house was and where her mom grew up. And so I drove her around. She gave some talks here. And our friendship is such that we're all going out to California to see her and George.
Oh, wow.
For spring break. So it's just been, it's just been kind of an ongoing thing. So this is a book of Neil's letters when he was busted for 2 joints and sent to San Quentin. Allen Ginsberg says that Neil was a bit of a political prisoner at the time.
Right.
And I don't know if there's anyone out there who knows anything about plays, but I wrote a 2-act play based on these letters of Neil in San Quentin. So if anyone knows how to do anything, I've never tried to write a play before, but I worked on it for a while in preparation, just to get to know Neil in preparation for Kathy's visit here.
Right.
And anyway, so
you Google how to write a play.
Right. Well, I've written the play. I don't know what to do with it now.
Oh, okay.
Right. So some other things music wise, I have this is the first show that I ever went to. I was 16 years old, and Molly Hatchet was on the way out, and they were playing a biker bar in Kalamazoo. And I
what
had,
other kind of bar would they play?
I had, with no internet, had no idea as to what the band looked like, who their fan base was. I just pulled up. We were the only vehicle that wasn't a bike, and I had no leather. But it was a great show. At the end of the show, the lead singer, what's his name? It's
the original guy,
Danny Joe Buck.
Okay.
He threw me a pick, as if to say, "You survived it, kid."
Okay.
Another one that I think is kind of an interesting story, is something I picked up on Sea of Tranquility, which is Riot. I was telling a friend about this band, and he said, at the end of my telling him about that he needed to check out Swords and Tequila, he said, well, yeah, the current singer of Riot 5 lives here in Saginaw, and we used to go see him when he was the lead singer for Harlot. And so it became this moment of, hey, check out this music. And he was like, I don't know this album, to, oh yeah, he used to work down the street.
Now they go by Riot 5?
They go by Riot 5. They played in Bay City this summer, and I took my girls to it. And while we were waiting for them, Michael was the lead singer, was just standing outside walking around. And so we went up to him and introduced ourselves, and it was a great show. So highly recommend Riot 5 stuff. And even this is Riot Act. This is a lead guitar player that was on Fire Down Under. This is a recent release, really good album.
I like the album by Pearl Jam, Riot Act.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that one though. All right. Some other connections here. This is a lot of what I have and what Sea of Tranquility really kind of sparked for me. I've always been into the Dead, and I've had, I have the music that I like, but Sea of Tranquility really kind of got me going in new directions. But where I started, what my main collection is jazz. And this is an album by Steve Lacy and Roswell Rudd. And why this is significant to me is in one of the songs at the Matt Bevel Institute in, this would have been Tucson, Arizona, April 4th, 1999, I was at that performance. And one of the things that was interesting that happened was Roswell Rudd was in the middle of a trombone solo. And at that time, the Matt Bevel Institute is an old train depot. And a train started to come by and it was blasting the horn. And Roswell Rudd adjusted what he was playing to do a variation on the Chattanooga Choo Choo. And then the train went by and then he went back to what he was doing.
I saw something similar to that.
Yeah,
I saw Stephen Still's solo by Train Tracks in Pittsburgh. And they were jamming in the middle of a song. I forget what song. And a train went by and he brought the whole band down to go into the rhythm of the train sound. And when the last car went by, he went into this blazing solo. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that. And in fact, I had two drunks next to me, wasted, hanging on one another. And they went to me, I never heard anything like that. I'm like, me neither, dude. Me neither.
That is really cool. Well, that's what happened here. And that particular song where that happens is featured on this album. And so I was at a conference in New Orleans and I was like, wow, I can't believe it. And then I looked at the date and I was like, I was at that show. So kind of special. It's the only jazz album that I have where my claps are part of the scene.
Can you hear the train on the CD?
You can. In fact, I made a little video of just that part of the song. And so if you go to SVSU GV Carter, all one word on YouTube, you can type in Steve Lacy and Roswell Rudd, and I have that part of the song kind of featured. I made a little video for it. So a couple other things just jazz-wise that I just feel like pointing out. Two of my favorite albums. This is Al Haig, Invitation. And if I had to say one of my favorite jazz trio albums, as much as I love all things Bill Evans, this is the album that I treasure most. And I also really am a fan of this album by Misha Mangelberg. Again, not a household name so far as it goes, although NPR every once in a while does a little bit of tinkling music in the background, and it just happens to be pulled from this particular album. So somebody at NPR knows who Misha Mangelberg is. And
yeah, you're out of my element. I always like to say I know a little bit about everything, but not a lot about anything. But now you're way out of I don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, well, jazz is just, that was kind of my go-to. I have a friend who works at CMU Public Radio, and he runs the jazz. He used to do the record store, and he does a radio program for 30 years called Destination Out. And he was my guru in terms of all things jazz. He plays in a band and teaches at Delta College. And this is a box set by Paul Bley. And again, highly recommend. Again, I love Bill Evans, but if you like Bill Evans kind of scene, Paul Bley, Misha Mangelberg, Al Haig, those are ones that I really like. Okay, and then just some music that I wanted to kind of note here. One, Queensryche. This was something I picked up from you on the Contrarians. You launched into a defense of Promised Land, and I had a friend who was on tour with Jeff Tate in Ireland at the time, and I knew the album Empire and I knew Operation Mindcrime, but that was about it. And your defense of this album said, well, you know what, I think I'm going to check it out. And boy, my wife and I really like it.
And you didn't know the album before you saw me talk about it?
hadn't even really listened to Queensryche other than I knew that my friend was going on this trip to Ireland.
Right.
And, I said, well, I love this. I love the album Empire, but I don't think I own the album. And when he came back, Jeff Tate is going to Scotland next year, and I'll be joining him and also seeing him at the machine shop in Flint this Saturday for the first time. So
There you
something,
go.
but both my wife and I are big into this album, and this is the album they're going to be touring when they do Scotland. They're gonna be
Nice.
featuring this particular album. So.
I saw them on that tour, and we got 9 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Another thing that I wanted to mention, Sea of Tranquility kind of turned me on. Martin Popoff. I did not know this album. Wow, this album. I had some Black Sabbath, but I didn't have this particular one. That had to be remedied because this is such a good one. I think everyone on the station knows that, but for me, it was like, okay.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
There you go.
Had no idea. Had not heard of Opeth at all, but yeah, great band. Great.
You can see I got a copy signed by the whole band there.
Oh yeah, great album. Another thing that I decided to do after tuning in was to kind of round out some collections, and I had a lot of Megadeth. You suggested that I get this one because I put a picture onto your station, and I had one that was missing, and you're like, yeah, but you're like, what about System Has Failed? And I'm like, yeah, I just never gotten around to getting that one. It is pretty good.
Yeah, the new one's good. I always said that's the last great one.
Right.
But
right.
A lot of people like a lot of the albums after that, but for me,
here's another one that I did not, a band that I did not listen to prior to SOT. Wow. Thin Lizzy. So good. Had no idea how vast the catalog was, and that pound for pound, it's just all the albums are great. So I had to snatch them up. Band I saw just a couple weeks ago in Flint. I saw Billy Strings recently, but Mastodon came to play at the Dow Event Center. I had never heard of Mastodon prior. Took a little bit of work on those early albums to get into, at least for me. But
oh yeah, those early ones are muddy and dense,
cantankerous.
That one, the music started to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, I really dig it. Sydney from some of the Hudson Valley Squares said you should check out Alice Cooper. Had no idea, had no clue as to Alice's catalog. I'm enjoying. I was from this generation, but I just never knew about this band.
Creator.
No, this didn't reach Hillsdale, where I was from, or at least not that I'm aware of the people I hung out with. Wow, this is an eye-opening album, but probably
heavy
my favorite,
for its time.
Oh, heavy, yeah, and probably one of my favorite discoveries. Again, a band I had never heard of, Cirith Ungol.
Just gotta get used to those vocals, though.
Tim Baker's vocals, to me, no problem. I try to sing in a band. I don't do that great. Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead, I know he gets some knocks. I just don't mind folks that try really hard, and Baker's vocals are trying, about as hard as you can. And then one last thing I thought I'd mention here. This is Kiko Luero from Megadeth. This is his solo albums. And I was just checking out a little bit of his story. He was born exactly 4 days before I was. So
okay.
If I had only plied myself and maybe I could have been up there with Mega Dave, but
right.
That's his life path. But anyway, and this is also I thought I'd also mention this shirt that I'm wearing. It's a piece of vintage clothing. This was the shirt that I purchased when I went to my Dead show. I don't know what happened to it, but I found one that was a large that someone was willing to sell. So I'm reunited with my Grateful Dead shirt from 1990. So.
And anyway. What's up with the jukebox? Is that a little Bluetooth type thing?
Yeah, just a little Bluetooth. I thought, just a little bit of background.
It's got the lights. It's got the cool
lights. And you did such a good job with your, I watched you put together your space here for doing these interviews, and downstairs. I think that was one of the things that kind of struck me early on about your station, was just watching you put together the collections in such an array. So
yeah, this
fun
room
stuff.
came up pretty fast. I was actually
Right.
shocked how much extra shit I had around the house to create a second room of shit.
Right. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, just some stuff. Talking about films. Here's the great Henry Gondorf from one of my favorite movies of all time, The Sting. This was in my bedroom when people would come over. They had no idea really who Charlie Chaplin or Paul Newman were, but yeah, that was.
The Sting is
certainly
good, but give me Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid any day. That's a top 10 movie for me.
They're both great. I have to agree that sometimes I'm just give me Butch Cassidy as well.
The chemistry Robert Redford and Paul Newman had was off the hook.
Why they couldn't have done a third movie is really
Right.
kind of a shame. I just, there needed to be one more in there. And yeah.
All right. With 3.5 minutes left, anything else you want to add real quick?
Well, if anyone's interested in things like pinball and rock and roll, if you keyword search, I've done some publications where I've done a thing called the Rockdalog. I did a thing called the Rizcade. These are kind of academic publications that center around pinball and rock and roll, and I've got stuff on other things out there, so it's searchable. And if people like the Neil Cassidy stuff, there's a thing that I wrote called Neil Cassidy's Writer's Block Manifesto, that again, if you're interested in those kind of topics. So, but
right.
Thanks so much for having me on.
If you're a smart person.
Well, I mean, it's just it's stuff that I kind of felt like no one was really looking at where the institution I'm at. They don't really care what I write about, so why not make it about something fun like pinball and rock and roll and Neil Cassidy?
Right.
For me, it's kind of like a little passion project. So anyway, just like what you got going on here, hearing about people's stuff. It's just
this is easy. I just hit play and I listen to you guys talk. I don't have to prepare. I don't have to do anything. But
perfect.
But hey, and if you're watching this and you want to be a part of this, a future episode, don't hesitate to give me a message on Facebook.
It's as easy as just contacting Jamie and just setting stuff up and talking.
And you think it's hard to talk, but once you get the shit in front of you and you're talking about it, time flies. I tell you, there's 10 minutes left in a blink of an eye every time. Everyone who's on, they're like, what? Oh, 10 minutes left already? So yeah, don't hesitate to let me know. This is another In the Spotlight, in the can, with Geoffrey V Carter. No, I didn't know what to call him. I was like, because there's no Geoffrey, I'm like, Geoff Carter? I guess I got to show Geoff Carter. So that was great. And I'll be posting this later today. And everyone out there, if I don't see you by Christmas, have a great Christmas out there. So later.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right, no problem.